Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Hillary, and I'm an analyst here at Eckerson Group. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on becoming a data-driven organization. We're thrilled so many of you were able to join us for this event. Without any further ado, I'm excited to introduce today's speakers. We will be hearing from Wayne Eckerson, president of Eckerson Group, an internationally recognized thought leader in business intelligence and analytics who thinks critically, writes clearly, and presents persuasively about complex topics. He is a best-selling author, sought-after consultant, and noted speaker. Eckerson has written 2 books, The Secrets of Analytical Leaders, Insights from Information Insiders, and Performance Dashboards, Measuring, Monitoring, and Managing Your Business, as well as dozens of reports and hundreds of articles during his 25 years in the field. We will also hear from Bradley Sitwell, VP of Industry and Solution Strategy at Infor. He is responsible for go-to-market strategy, product and competitive positioning, and strategic production direction for Infor's data and analytics platform. Bradley has been in business intelligence and big data machine learning space for over 17 years, having led go-to-market strategy around machine learning and AI for a leading data science and big data provider, as well as designing new value-based healthcare analytics solutions using cloud-based technology. Before we begin, just a couple of notes about Eckerson Group. Eckerson Group is a research and consulting firm that specializes in data analytics. Hopefully you've read some of our articles and reports, but you may be unaware that we also excel in consulting. And just a little housekeeping. Before Wayne and Bradley kick it off, if you have any questions or comments, use the QA button and we'll address them as we go along. Only use the chat if you have a problem or question for the administrator. So Q&A button for questions, chat for technical issues. And without further ado, I will hand it off to Bradley to begin the webinar. Thanks for being here.
All right, thanks, Joe. First off, I just want to say at Infor, we are so excited to partner with Wayne and the entire Eckerson team on this initiative to really help companies think about how to become more data-driven. As an industry cloud company, Infor's focus is really on helping our customers create a sustainable operational advantage. And we know that one of the absolute best ways that we can do that is by helping them become data-driven, by taking a much more holistic approach to how they leverage their data and analytics across the entire enterprise. So at the end of our webinar today, I'll take just a few minutes and I'll talk a little bit about some of the unique capabilities that we offer at Infor that we think has really helped our customers in that journey to becoming data-driven and has ultimately given them a leg up in the industry as it relates to their competition. So we hope that you find the research and the resources that we'll be talking about today to be useful in your journey to becoming a data leader. So with that, I will turn it over to Wayne to get into the meat of the topic today.
Great, thanks, Bradley. Glad to be here with all of you out there and sharing what I've come to think of as a coming data divide. This is my hypothesis that by 2025, there will be a nearly unbridgeable chasm between data laggards and data elites. You might be wondering, well, what is a laggard and what is elite and where do I fall? Well, a laggard is, as you see here, the company runs on spreadsheets and reports. Users generally just trust the data that's given to them. There are very few standard KPIs or master data in the company. There's absolute report sprawl and data silos. There's probably a self-service initiative that went awry, and people only trust the data that they create, not data that anyone else gives them. There's very little reuse or data sharing across departments or silos, and analysts spend most of their time finding and fixing data rather than analyzing, visualizing, and sharing it. IT is not seen as a strategic partner. It's really seen as a bottleneck and a cost center. And from the perspective of executives, they view data as an operational center that costs money. They keep feeding data money into it and hope some value comes out of it, but that's about all they can expect. So hopefully that doesn't describe your organization, maybe sometime in the past, but not now. Now, what's a data elite? On the other hand, you can imagine they're the complete opposite. They run on data and increasingly algorithms. Users take an active role in governing the data. There are ample number of data stewards and data owners assigned to every domain with affiliated data administrators to help on the technical side. There are standard KPIs and master data. Things have been defined from the top down and adhered to throughout the enterprise. Reports are governed and the data in them, at least standardized reports. And there's a process for making changes to those that everyone adheres to. There's lots of collaboration and reuse, especially among the analyst and data science community. Instead of reinventing the wheel, they're actually looking to see what other people have built and see what parts and components of that they can reuse for their own analysis. And those analysts spend most of their time actually analyzing data. What a novelty. And IT is seen as a strategic partner and a facilitator of self-service. They no longer try to do it all and build everything. They now help you out in the business empower yourself to create your own reports in a standardized way. And executives generally view data as a strategic opportunity to at least reduce costs, if not augment their sales process, and perhaps even make money by selling the data or an analytics service. So if you're a data laggard or somewhere in between, you might be wondering, well, how do I cross this chasm before it becomes completely untenable to get over it and to jump from one to the other? And that is something that we deal with here at Eckerson Group day in, day out on the research side, as well as in our consulting organizations, where we are helping companies figure out how to move the needle and go from laggards to elites, or somewhere close to it in any case. And we came up with this little formula, P to the fourth plus D equals V, and that's how we get people to cross that chasm. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that is right now. I'm going to leave that to the end just to pique your curiosity a little bit. So let's introduce our first poll, Sarah, if you will. Based on what I just described, data laggards and data elites, and that's a pretty big binary separation between the two. Would you say you're a laggard, an elite, or somewhere in between? And this is obviously absolutely anonymous, so you can feel free to be candid here. So 3 choices. Are you a laggard, a data elite, or somewhere in between? Show the results of the poll. Yeah, somewhere in the middle. That's kind of what we all suspected, 68%. If I'm reading that right, about 2/3. About 1/5, a little more than 1/5 are laggards, and wow, 10% are elite. That's great. We don't run into those too often. So thank you very much. I think we could learn something from you guys. So I've been in this industry for a long time now, started covering data warehousing and business intelligence back in the early 1990s. And I've seen 3 major waves happen in this space. The first wave, and they're all 15 years. The first wave was business intelligence from the 1990s to about 2005. And that was where a lot of what we did in the data and analytics space was driven by IT. Around 2005, we started seeing the first rumblings of self-service intelligence, where users drive the creation of reports and data sets to service their own needs without IT assistance. And now we're on the cusp of the final era of artificial intelligence, where we're using models to drive our business. Things have changed. Our focus has moved from the past to the present to the future. Our actions using data have gone from being reactive to things that have happened to being proactive to, in fact, with AI, being able to automate our decisions in some cases. And the impact has gone from neutral at best to positive with self-service, where we're more agile and nimble and generating insights for business gain, to absolutely game-changing. I hope to prove that in this presentation. One thing that you'll notice here is that these eras are not independent or self-contained. They actually build on each other. And that's really important. Business intelligence really is a foundation for everything else you do. And I find that every organization, no matter how advanced, still needs to work on improving their delivery of business intelligence and self-service intelligence as they migrate to a model-driven world. Now, there are keys to succeeding in each of these eras, and I'll put these up here. I've limited these to 4 key factors in each of these eras, and I think they hold up pretty well, but I'd love to hear what you all think. And you can read through these here. It would be a whole presentation really to go through each of these, what I would call success factors. But in the BI space, where I think still a lot of people are struggling, and where we do a lot of our consulting work, how do we get an enterprise data repository that houses our shared standardized data? How do we integrate data from multiple sources? How do we ensure that the quality of data is good enough for analysis and fit for purpose? How do we create standard metrics that we can measure business performance for the enterprise as well as every department? How do we represent those metrics inside reports or dashboards? So those are tall orders to achieve. And in the self-service, we double down. We have to improve our governance, not only of data, but reports. Our federated center of excellence means that now that we've got people out in the field doing data and analytics, we need to align them and make sure everyone's headed in the same direction, using the same standardized data. We need a bigger data repository, not just a warehouse, but probably a lake. It may be centralized, it may be distributed, may consist of multiple zones of data processing and access. And then we need a self-service workbench, which is a set of tools to enable self-service analysis and reporting. And I think all those are starting to converge into a workbench. And then finally, in the third era, we need a data science program with data scientists and a data science leader. We're now analyzing large volumes of machine data, social media data that often is streaming in off of machines or logs or servers. We have lots and lots of data pipelines, so that means we need some kind of method to automate those and develop those quickly with great accuracy so that we can scale up our enterprise. So that's what data ops is all about. And we need to instruct people on how to read the output, statistical output, numeric output, visual output, and that's what data literacy is about. So those are the challenges that I see organizations face in each of these eras. Now, digital transformation has been in the air. Every executive, those words kind of spill off their lips very easily. But when they say that, you get a sense that they're scared. And what they're really saying is, we don't really want to be disrupted by digital natives, of which there are hundreds, if not thousands these days. But what they really need, other than a digital transformation strategy, is a data strategy, because you can't go digital without good data. Digital is based on data. And so we need to get our data house in order and evolve through those three eras that I just mentioned if we're going to truly transform our organizations into digital players. So just for an example, these are some of the more well-known digital disruptors whose business runs on data and runs digitally. Last I looked, they had almost a $3 trillion combined market cap. And that's amazing, since most of these organizations didn't exist 20 years ago. What are they doing? Well, I think there's a couple of things. And these are all mostly consumer players. They're providing one-touch access to everything. For Google, it's information. Amazon, it's any product you want. Facebook, it's any connection in the world. Netflix, it's any movie, and so on and so forth. Really easy access to a huge inventory of whatever it is you're looking for. And they know your name, and they're glad you came. So very personalized service. They know what you've bought and what you might like based on what you've bought. And building on that, they have a built-in community of people who can help guide you in using this service, provide reviews in the case of Amazon, for instance. In Facebook, it's all about community. But perhaps most for consumers, these services come free or at extremely low cost. And perhaps most important of all, it's extremely easy to do a transaction. In fact, people call these platforms the ability to deliver frictionless transactions. And making that happen in a digital world takes a lot of time, talent, and investment, and a lot of data. So these digital upstarts who are disrupting every industry out there, they're really focused on delivering an exquisite customer experience through their digital channels. And really what they've done is use data and digital to master convenience, choice, cost, and community. So whatever industry you're in, look for these digital upstarts. They're all taking a roadmap from these 5 or 6 vendors up here, especially Amazon, right? And copying their business model to try and disrupt the industry and perhaps displace your organization. So let me give you an example of one. In the insurance industry, there's one of the more interesting and well-known upstarts of among probably 1,000 that are out there is called Lemonade. And it's completely AI-driven process. They have these AI bots to buy the insurance, and AI bots, in this case AI Jim, to submit and process a claim. So these are some screenshots. Of course, it's all done via your mobile phone, right? So you can submit a claim by just typing words into the screen. They've got some keyword assists, and it's all driven by natural language processing that guides the conversation. They present a pledge of honesty when you finally submit your claim to swear that you'll be honest. And that's to emphasize that you're part of a community. And in fact, Lemonade is actually a very old business model. It's a mutual insurance company where all the participants are members who share the profits. But in Lemonade's case, they don't hand out profits to the members. They make donations to charity, which is something that their target customer, which are millennial urban renters, really do value. So again, it's emphasizing the community aspect of this. And then finally, most importantly, from our purposes, in the background, they're running 14 fraud models while the person is on the phone submitting the claim in the background. And they pay 50% of claims automatically and 25% of claims in 3 seconds or less. Now, that's pretty impressive, but even more so, I read that Lemonade updates its algorithms on average 8 times daily for all aspects of how it does business, from pricing, claims, coverage, service, et cetera. And this is a hallmark of these digital upstarts that understand how to create data pipelines to feed their analytical models and keep those pipelines and models up to date. So their whole premise is the more data we have about an individual, a target customer or prospect, the less risk we will take on. And for an insurance company, reducing your risk is the name of the game. So their goal is to get a policy of one, so micro pools. They put every customer in a pool and they assign a risk factor to that pool. So the more data they have, the more they can achieve that goal of a policy of one. Now, most insurance companies collect about 20 to 40 fields on their prospective clients. But Lemonade collects 2,000 to 4,000 data points on each customer, pulling data from everywhere it can to assess a customer's risk. So that gives it a huge advantage. And combined with its digital capabilities and data automation allows it to deliver faster quotes, lower prices, faster claims, and happier customers. And I will say I tried Lemonade. I'm not their target customer, and their prices actually were higher for me compared to my existing home insurance. But I will say the experience was completely delightful, and that's the whole point. I really wanted to be a customer because it was completely transparent. I knew exactly what I was getting. If I wanted to change things, it was immediate. So here's an example of a digital upstart taking a page from Amazon and other leading consumer providers and bringing this to other industries, perhaps an industry near you. So Eric Colson, he's the Chief Algorithms Officer at Stitch Fix. He formerly held that position at Netflix. Stitch Fix is kind of a Netflix spinoff focused on delivering apparel online using a Netflix model. So Eric is one of the guys who helps these, digital upstarts use data and algorithms profitably to run their businesses. And I won't go through his quotes here, but his answer when I asked him, can an older company join the data elite? He basically hems and haws and says, not really. Now, at Eckerson Group, we work with older companies who've got legacy systems and business processes and operational applications. And those do make things harder to advance in the digital data world. But my perspective is it can be done, but it does take a bona fide commitment from top executives, an enterprise commitment to governing data, strong technical know-how and infrastructure, an effective partnership between business and IT, not the polarized version we have in many companies, and a complete cultural makeover. So the company has an analytics culture. So you might ask, what does an analytics culture look like? Well, I think it's got 4 major dimensions. This is kind of the sniff test or the litmus test. So you can look at the executives and get a good sense of whether the company has an analytics culture. First and foremost, is there a commitment from the very top, especially the CEO or president, to data? And that can usually be recognized by them having given a mandate to treat data as a valuable asset, as valuable as people, as cash, or buildings, or any other major asset that that organization has. If there's that commitment at the top, then it's likely that will trickle down to the rest of the organization. Secondly, how do executives make decisions? Are they making decisions totally on gut feel and intuition, or are they using data to validate their intuition and intuition to validate the data? There's a balance there. So how do executives make decisions? If they're making it with data and require people who are presenting plans to them to bring the data, we trust in God, all others bring data, then that's also a good sign. And finally, with executive example, are executives adhering to their own standards? If an organization has standardized on KPIs and reports, are the executives actually using those? Or are they using spread marks hand-delivered by their chosen analyst of choice, right? So are they not only talking the talk, but are they walking the walk? So it all starts at the top and trickles down. All right, what's another sign? Well, look to the knowledge workers, the people in the trenches. How are they behaving? How are they acting? And we know from companies with an analytics culture that every individual, every knowledge worker takes responsibility for data. In a sense, they take responsibility for governing it. Now, there are probably also an army of data stewards whose job, either full-time or part-time, is to make sure the data means what it's supposed to mean and it's accurate. There are data owners for every domain who are accountable for the quality and meaning of that data. And there are data administrators, technical folks who help data stewards make corrections and changes as need be. So governance is everyone's job in an analytics culture. Also, are these knowledge workers empowered both with knowledge about how to go get data, how to create reports, and then how to interpret that data and take action? And are they empowered with tools to do all those things? That self-service workbench I mentioned earlier, especially in the data analyst community. And finally, are people literate about data? Do they have basic skills in numeracy? Do they understand statistics at a basic level? Do they understand how to analyze and interpret charts? Do they understand how to recognize bias in those charts or skew? Some basic things that every data worker really needs to work with information properly. So there's usually a curriculum at these organizations that teaches rank and file workers how to do these things. Now, we can look sideways too, out to business units and look to see how they're acting on data, working with data, and interacting with others based on that data. First and foremost, is there a cross-functional group of representatives from each department who form an analytics council that essentially serves as the board of directors for the enterprise data analytics program for the whole company? Every company needs a board of directors for data, and that's what we call an analytics council. And there's usually two parts to that council. There's usually an executive committee that does funding, and then there's the working committee that does the real work of refining all kinds of things, marketing programs, training programs, standards for report governance, standards for data. They are the ones who first review a data strategy presented by the data team, and they sign off on that. So having that board of directors for data is really important, I have found. This council takes an avid interest in data and report governance, because usually that's the pain they feel most, that everyone's working with different definitions of metrics and dimensions and master data, and everyone's using slightly different versions of reports with different definitions of those things. So getting your data and reports aligned is a huge task for the council or a subcommittee of it. And then finally, a community of interest where people around the organization collaborate instead of burrowing down into their silos. They collaborate on a regular basis, formally and informally, to share tips, tricks, and techniques about how to do self-service analytics or machine learning, or just to create a report or interpret a report or find the right one for them, use a data catalog. So all these things can be facilitated from the top, but also hopefully spawned and supported by a cross-functional group of people in the business units. And then finally, the data team, the corporate or enterprise group of people who are responsible for creating a shared enterprise data, they have a huge role to play. They obviously used to do everything, but now their job really is to manage that data and pull it all together either centrally or in a distributed way, so people can access that to do analysis and create reports. So managing the technology infrastructure is really important, and creating zones of access, very important. You probably have a data warehouse and a data lake and who knows what else to support that, virtualization tool perhaps. But just as important as the technical infrastructure is the organizational architecture. I call this the center of excellence or your data analytics program. And this is where you proliferate best practices throughout the organization, where the corporate team sets some standards endorsed and approved by the Analytics Council that all the departments then adhere to, that align those units with the corporate direction as well as with each other. Creating that center of excellence and aligning all the factions in the organization so they're marching in the same direction is tricky and challenging, but it's really fun when it works. And finally, the IT or data team still has a lot of work to do. Oftentimes, they're the ones building not only the data repositories, but the pipelines to feed machine learning models, for instance, or feed standardized enterprise reports. And they may have hundreds of these pipelines. And to scale up that development effort and deliver things faster, better, cheaper, well, that's a tall order. We've done a lot of work in mastering agile analytics. But now the next wave really is data ops and helping to automate these pipelines, apply testing all along the way, not only in development, but in testing and production, and monitoring what we're doing so that we proactively can identify issues and correct them before the customers actually see them. We don't want customers testing our software and finding bugs. So those are signs of an analytics culture. Hopefully that will help you understand where you stand in this spectrum. So I mentioned at the outset this little formula for success, P to the fourth plus D equals V. Well, this is our value chain model at Eckerson Group. This is what we use as a methodology to help companies advance through those three areas of intelligence. As you can see here, there's a business environment that consists of business processes, business applications, and a business culture. That's a huge input into the data environment, which consists of the people, program, platform, and processes surrounding your data. If you master each of those things, and those are core capabilities that we evaluate as consultants when we work with clients, then you can generate lots of business value. And that value typically is generated through re-engineered processes that now become data-driven, as well as perhaps new business models, business innovation that can help the company improve its top line or bottom line. So this formula for success is, the right program, right people, right processes, right platform, right data creates large business value. Now, you're fortunate that we've actually spent a number of years really creating a quantitative instrument to help you measure how data-driven you are and how you stand on that formula that I just explained, P to the fourth plus D equals V. We have two versions of it. One is the full version with 7 categories and 25 subcategories with 150 questions. That one costs money to take. It's designed for your data team to take in a collaborative fashion where you're all working on the same set of questions. But we also now, thanks to Infor, have an abridged version that can give you a taste of the full version, but also a sense of where you stand in this maturity model. And that's 30 questions, and it takes an individual about 12 minutes. And that's free of charge. And you see the URL there. We highly encourage you to take that assessment, find out where you stand in the maturity model, which is this. So it's no longer just data laggard and data elite. We've got some other stages in here. And very quickly, I'll step you through these. A laggard is really where you don't have an enterprise data analytics program yet. You're pretty much afflicted by data silos, report sprawl, and people make decisions largely through gut feel because even if they want data, they can't really get it. So stage 2 is not bad. We find a lot of people are here. They've deployed enterprise capabilities, say a data warehouse, maybe a data lake, but those repositories are costly to maintain, slow to change. BI adoption is low. There's enterprise metrics and master data, but they're not well defined or completely defined. Data's not really well governed. And as a result, departments kind of fall back into their habits of building data silos. We see that a lot. Now, stage 3 you might think is nirvana, because that's where your enterprise deployment actually works. You've got standard KPIs and master data. You have a data governance program that's managing and governing data for the entire enterprise as well as your analytics environment. You're also governing reports. Your data platform supports a lot of different use cases, including self-service and machine learning and AI. Well, that sounds pretty good. But the last 2 levels are the areas where those digital natives really have succeeded. They're not only managing data well, they're leveraging it for business gain. So in stage 4, you're supporting some very strategic applications with data like Customer 360 or intelligent supply chains. Whereas in stage 5, you have completely reinvented your organization as a digital player. And you're running on data and algorithms, just like we saw with Stitch Fix and Netflix and Lemonade and those other upstarts that we talked about. Your organization has digitized all internal customer and supplier facing processes, delivering high levels of efficiency, agility, and responsiveness. So we encourage you to take this abridged assessment here. And before we go on, let's take another poll, a little bit more granular question here. So where do you think you stand now in this maturity model? Are you a laggard, a follower, a middler, a leader, or elite? I bet most people are middlers. Yes, they are. 48% are middlers, almost half. A little bit more than a third are followers, and laggards, looks like laggards are next. Now, where did all the data elites go? I guess they were leaders. Or they realized that maybe they had better things to do. Who knows? All right, so let's close that out. And let's go to the next slide. So these are some results, early results from the assessment that the abridged assessment sponsored by Infor. Most people indeed are data middlers, average score of 3.71 out of 6. And you can see the subcategories that we measured here. Now, in the abridged version, we only asked one question per subcategory. In the expanded version, we asked 5 or 6 to get a real sense of where you stand on these. What I find interesting is that the areas that people probably know best, they're at the bottom. So self-service tools, that scores the worst. Data science platform, so any data governance, that's the data people use, and BI platform, those actually score the worst for some reason. I guess familiarity breeds contempt, as they say. Then you go up to the top, and it's the business executives are starting to smell pretty sweet. And what's interesting is that data quality is number 3. Or that's really surprising and heartening as well. We spent decades trying to improve our data quality, and maybe this is an indicator that all that effort has paid off. Okay, so just to summarize here, in your journey to cross the data divide, it's important to understand the 3 areas of intelligence you're being asked to cross and master: business intelligence, self-service intelligence, and artificial intelligence. To evolve through that spectrum, you need to master P to the 4th plus D equals V, people, process, program, platform, data, and value. If you do that, you'll end up creating a data culture, top down from executives, bottom up from knowledge workers, sideways in from departments and the data team. And you'll grow your data maturity from data laggard to data elite. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Bradley to take us through his slide.
Well, before we get there, we did have a question that came up during your portion of the talk, where you said we'd answer them as we went along. So I'll go ahead and read that now, and we can bring it back up at the end, or you can field it now if you'd like. What do you suggest as a starting point when the organization is too small and does not have a data culture and skilled professionals in this field?
That's a good question. Good question. We actually do a little pro bono work, and we work with some nonprofits who are in that same condition. And the first thing I always think of, it's not always the thing that works, is there a group in your industry that has created a data as a service platform that has pre-packaged capabilities, data model, ETL tools, that will get you 60 to 80% of the way towards a data environment that they manage that for you. So you don't need any of the, you don't need to hire people to do this. All you need to bring is an analyst. And even then, some of these services provide analytic concierge services to help you learn how to analyze your own data. So that's my first instinct. The second instinct is that a lot of vendors, and I'm sure including Infor, and Bradley can probably talk to this, that they do have within their tool sets, they do have industry packages, quick starts that will get you going, very quickly up to speed, with the data infrastructure, with analytical tools, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the 2 things I normally look for when helping a small company get started and move quickly.
Terrific. And we've got one more, but it's a little bit more focused on Infor. So I'm going to let Bradley go ahead and start. And Lee, if you still have your question, we can bring it back up at the end. All right. Thank you so much.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Wayne. I think what you shared are some very powerful but very practical insights on how we can focus on becoming data driven. So before I jump in and talk about Infor kind of 6-step approach to becoming data driven, we want to do just one more quick poll. So what we'd like to know is, what do you think are the biggest challenges that are possibly preventing your organization from becoming data driven? Is it that you're unable to scale rapidly to meet growing business demand? Or is it that users spend just an enormous amount of time aggregating data to deliver, quasi-standard reports? Or perhaps you're dependent on IT or analysts to obtain more data and analysis for you because of a lack of self-service. Or maybe analytics really isn't being driven from the top down in the organization, or you're using lots of Excel and struggling with inconsistent results. Or finally, maybe data just isn't seen as an economic asset in your organization. So if you could, so I'll leave that poll running for just 30 seconds or more, and I'll talk about our focus around these 6 foundational steps that we believe can really help any organization on their journey to becoming data driven. So the first one that you'll see is, we believe you have to increase your enterprise resilience and flexibility with a modern data architecture. And that's one of the P's that Wayne talked about, the P for platform. You need a modern data management platform that delivers clean, trustworthy data with a simplified data access for analysis. And so at Infor, our approach is to offer a complete end-to-end solution. We often say that all you need is data and burst to tackle pretty much any analytic use case that you have. So what we include in our modern data architecture is an integration platform as a service that can basically take data from anywhere and move it to anywhere in the enterprise, an infinitely scalable data lake that can store massive amounts of both structured and unstructured data. We provide robust data modeling and ETL capabilities to help you quickly get your data analytic ready. And we also offer an enterprise semantic layer, that business definition layer that allows you to create those enterprise-wide KPIs, but to do it with governance. And of course, we offer all of the front-end experiences that you would expect, from pixel perfect reporting to ad hoc data discovery to even augmented insights. And all of that is delivered in a multi-tenant software as a solution in the cloud offering. So there's nothing to install. It's 100% in a web browser. And we often, tell our customers, this will be the last upgrade you will ever have around your data and analytics strategy. And because all of these solutions are pre-integrated and delivered in the cloud, we see on average our customers going live in 40% less time than what they would have been able to do in other legacy solutions. Now, the second thing that we focus on is a need to focus on rapidly unifying and managing data with automation. And this is something that we have heavily invested in, because we really understand that the longest part of the analytics process is not the reports, it's not the dashboards, it's everything it takes to get that data analytics ready for analysis. And so we have patented automated data refinement technology that is a metadata-driven approach to doing data integration. So what you do is you simply tell Burst how the different enterprise data sources in your organization relate to each other from a metadata level. And then Burst will automatically generate a best-in-class enterprise data warehouse for you, including all of the schemas, all of the DDL, all of the update logic, everything that you need around time series analysis, and even handle very complex things like snapshotting and slowly changing dimensions. And this is really kind of getting you more towards that final wave that Wayne was talking around, the automated process of transforming your data. And again, our customers on average see about a 70% reduction in the time that it takes to ingest and model data because of this augmented approach. The next thing that we talk about is you have to establish data as a service to expand the use of trusted data across the entire organization. And that really is that second wave that Wayne talked about with self-service intelligence. It's all about how do you empower a small centralized team to deliver analytics to a much larger decentralized organization. And at Infor Burst, our approach is something we call networked BI. Instead of taking that legacy big bang approach, big data warehouse where you have to think of every potential use case before you can get started, we take a democratized approach where you're actually building out a federated model, use case by use case, leveraging in and extending what each team has developed. But you still get that single version of the truth in the semantic layer. So I still define my enterprise metrics like revenue once so that I can reuse that across each of those virtual tenants that I create for each of my analytic use cases. But what that means is if I need to change the definition of revenue, I still change it in one place and it changes in all those virtual tenants. The next thing that we often talk about is the ability to equip users to access data using modern tools and useful information in a very flexible consumption model. So this is really about that final wave of data literacy, right? Having the right tool for the right user in the right context. And it can look very different from one user to the next. We are all about how do you make data access very frictionless. And a lot of times that means you need to meet your users where they are. So say an HR manager, they might feel more comfortable with an in-context analytics widget that is embedded directly in the human capital management system that allows them to get the insight that they need at the point of decision. Whereas a sales rep may feel much more comfortable with, say, an interactive pipeline report that's on their mobile device while they're out on the go, which is different than, say, a financial analyst that needs highly formatted, pixel-perfect reports for like balance sheet or general ledger that they then need to burst out to literally hundreds of different users, but also filter the data with one report so everybody only sees the information that they have access to. Well, your business analysts, they may need visual self-service data prep that allows them to pull data from multiple cloud services and blend that with their local data, doing the complete end-to-end analytics lifecycle in a single solution, but with complete self-service. And then for your business users, they really need to just ask a question and then automatically surface the insights in a natural language way that makes it very easy for them to consume, really lowering the barrier to analytics. And we provide all of these different ways of accessing data in a single, seamless user experience. And we help you kind of meet the user where the need is and where they need to make decisions, which is what really makes analytics much more pervasive. And because we have this full spectrum solution, what we find is 61% of our customers use Infor Burst as their only data and analytics platform. They don't need other things to augment those capabilities. The next thing that we talk about is you need to employ a business outcome approach to help increase adoption and deliver value. So, Wayne talked about the 4 Ps, but he also talked about the V, the value. And that's why we follow this proprietary value-based design methodology, which is really focused on the creation of business value. And we've actually codified the process of how to deliver value with data. And it starts with a business conversation where we help you identify what are the true drivers of business outcomes. And then we engineer the analytic experiences for better decision making. Because just giving people access to data is not enough. We need to help them make better decisions. And this is a systematic approach to helping people actually make better decisions, tying the activities of the frontline worker in the organization to the strategic outcomes of the highest level of the organization. And this is a proven approach that we've used with literally thousands of customers. And because of that, we see about 66% higher BI implementation success rates. So our belief is if you take advanced technology and marry it with a proven methodology, you can really guarantee better results. And then the last thing we always focus on is you got to extend the insights beyond the enterprise to get the most value from your data. And that's what we call data monetization. And Wayne talked about this, how we see data as an economic asset now, just like our financial resources, just like our human capital resources. So therefore, we have to manage it the same way we manage those other resources at the C level. So we manage those financial resources with the CFO. We manage those human capital resources with the CHRO. And that's why there has to be executive buy-in at the, say, chief data officer or chief analytics officer level. But we also have to make sure that at that level, they're measuring the ROI of the data. And we look at measuring that based on utilization, trust, and outcomes. So when we're talking about utilization, we really mean is how pervasively are analytics being used across the enterprise? How many people use it daily to make their decisions, and what new business opportunities are being discovered in your data? When we talk about trust, it's how satisfied are your users with the value of your data? What's your NPS score on your data? Does it help them make better decisions? Do they believe the information is accurate and timely? And then from an outcomes perspective, is it driving positive change on our strategic initiatives? Are we using our data to create new revenue streams? Are we effectively monetizing our data assets? So just as we systematically quantify the return on our financial and human assets, we have to quantify the return on our data assets to really drive that continuous improvement. So hopefully you can see how every one of these capabilities can actually help you drive significant improvements in how you approach becoming data-driven. So let's see what you felt were your biggest challenges to becoming data-driven. So let's go ahead and pull up those poll results. So what I see here is number one, 49%, we use lots of Excel spreadsheets. That's great, because what we see when we've run this is always in the top three is the use of a lot of Excel with inconsistent results. In previous surveys, as much as 50% said that they struggled with that problem. Another one that was a high problem, a dependence on IT or analysts. Again, that is always in the top three. Historically, as much as 56% of organizations say they feel that is holding them back. And then a lot of time spent aggregating data for standard report. Again, this is one that we see a lot of times in our top three. As much as 61% of the time, people say that aggregating data and all that time that it takes is really inhibiting their success. So the reality is every one of these challenges can ultimately limit how effectively and how broadly your organization is using your data. And therefore, it can become an inhibitor to becoming data-driven. So I just want to quickly wrap up and summarize why we hope you would consider leveraging Infor on your journey to becoming data-driven. And we really think it comes down to just a few key business requirements that we believe almost every enterprise has in common. The first is you need to be able to unify complex data of any type from any source, and you need to bring it into a single integrated view of the business. And you need to do that rapidly in order to keep pace with all the change that's going on in the business. And that's exactly what our patented automation can help you do. You need to be able to analyze very complex business processes and complex systems, not just simple spreadsheets. And you need to be able to deliver personalized insights to every part of the organization. And that's what our self-service guided user experience ensures, that every user can access the insights they need, but in a way that works for them, to meet them where they're at. But you need that data to be governed with reusable metrics that your organization can actually trust. And that's what our governed and trusted semantic layer is all about, helping you drive adoption by ensuring that everyone from the CEO down to the frontline worker is we're using the same consistent enterprise-wide metrics that will actually move the needle. And you need those insights very rapidly with the ability to start small, but to scale as your demand grows. And with our cloud-based architecture, you can deploy instantly with only what you need today, and then you can scale economically to meet the needs of tomorrow. And finally, you have to make sure that your solution can handle not just the use cases that you're dealing with today, but has to future-proof you for the challenges that you maybe haven't even thought of yet. And our modern data architecture is built to evolve with your changing business needs and with your changing technology landscape so that you can tackle more complex use cases as your needs actually grow over time. But most importantly, you really need a partner who is invested in helping you succeed, who's going to be there with you every step of the way, whether it's helping you modernize your technology stack, improving your operational efficiency, or even helping you to maximize your IT workforce. And at Infor, our goal is to help you achieve that goal of becoming data-driven and to really unlock that sustainable operational advantage in your data that we've been talking about. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our host and see if we have any questions.
All right. Thank you so much. We've got a few questions from our audience. I think this first one is probably directed towards you, Brad. What investments is Infor making as it relates to providing healthcare KPI benchmarks for multi-tenant cloud clients? The questioner is also a Burst client and is wondering when AI will enter the conversation for installation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually making significant investments, and it kind of relates back to the question that was asked before, where Wayne talked about how you can actually buy pre-built data models that are industry specific. So each of our Cloud Suite solutions, including Cloud Suite Healthcare, has pre-built data models, industry best practice KPIs, and role-based dashboards that come out of the box so that you are looking at your data the same way all of the other healthcare systems that are using our cloud suites are looking at their data. So you're getting that same consistent view. And from an AI perspective, part of that holistic ecosystem that I was talking about with the data lake, with our integration platform as a service, with our analytics platform Burst, is our AI platform of Coleman. And what Coleman allows you to do is to take that same great data that is going into that infinitely scalable data lake and feeding Burst for analytics to also feed your AI models in Coleman, and allows you to do things like robotic process automation and model management, and then feed that data back into your analytics platform. So as you're making predictions, you can now distribute that out to literally hundreds of thousands of users so that they can take actions on those predictions.
Terrific, thanks so much. We've got one more question if we've got time.
Hey, Joe, before you ask that, I just wanted to comment on, Infor's data as a service. I mentioned that in response to that first question, and it triggered in my mind the fact that we actually did a whole research report on this thing we called Unified Data and Analytics Platforms, or UDAP, at the beginning of this year. And Burst is a great example of a UDAP. And increasingly, I see companies like the question I answered from a small company that's starting up, but it could be departments at large companies, medium-sized businesses, turning to UDAP for all the reasons that Brad mentioned in his presentation. Just, quick time to install, to deploy, time to insight is accelerated. It future-proofs everything for you. So we're seeing these UDAP platforms, which Infor Burst is an example, really helping organizations, climb that ladder to, to become AI-driven, because they're going to bring all that capability with you, from BI to self-service to AI. So I guess that would be the third thing I would think of to in response to that question I had was, more generic platforms. But it sounds like, Brad, that you actually have a whole bunch of quick start packages for various industries.
Absolutely.
I'm curious which industries you focus on.
We have healthcare, discrete manufacturing, industrial manufacturing, distribution enterprise, public sector, hospitality, asset management, human capital management, and aerospace and defense, automotive, and I'm sure a couple of more that I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's quite a span. That's tremendous.
Terrific. So our next question is, if becoming data-driven requires commitment from top management, who should be involved in the committee that helps build out the business case for it?
That's a good question. So we get involved in that quite a bit. So usually there's someone who's kind of a champion, and ideally there's a dual champion, one in the technology group, usually a data leader, and then someone on the business side, ideally in the executive suite, and they task the organization, they convince the organization to do a data strategy and get moving along this journey. But ultimately, I think that analytics council I mentioned, you can't go too far without a cross-functional team of folks who are on board, because these are the people who represent the folks in the trenches, the data analysts especially, and then the people that the data analysts serve, business users, knowledge workers, and they're where the rubber hits the road, and they see all the friction that's involved in turning data into insight and action. So you got to get those folks on board. And as I said, not only get them on board, but turn them into your bosses, turn them into this board of directors who's responsible and accountable for the outcome of this enterprise program. And now they have the ability to manage this resource, and it could be millions of dollars of budget involved and lots of FTEs. And it's their duty to really optimize that, not just for their own individual group, but now as part of a cross-functional team for the entire company. And to me, that's transformative. So a lot of people kind of poo-poo that, but I think if you really think about it and implement it, it can really be a huge change agent for your organization.
Yeah, and Wayne, just something I'll add to that from my experiences, being an analyst in a large multinational company, was there were two things that I always went after. One, I went after the person that was rogue IT, that was delivering data out to the business, and I brought them into the fold and helped them define where we were going to get buy-in because they had the users. And the second thing I would do is I always found the one person on the leadership team who had the weakest numbers compared to all their other peers. That was the use case we would focus on first, because when you take that person from a zero to a hero, then everybody else wants the data that they're getting.
Zero to hero, I like that. And your first strategy I talk about a lot. It's called putting the fox in the hen house. Yes. You take the rogue guy and turn him into a leader, and he brings the rest of the organization along. So you have very good instincts, Brad.
Alrighty, well, I think that just about wraps up our time. So thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you learned something that you can take away back to your organizations.